Coming up on the Mindful Midlife Crisis.
How much drywall have you replaced in your home?
Oh, well, my middle kid put his head through the drywall one time.
That's the story I was thinking about.
Yeah. I was walking through the hallway and I see a softball-sized divot in the, and I'm like, what the hell? And I'm like, Charlie, come here. And sure enough, I put him right next to the divot, and it's right where his head hit the wall.
So what did he do?
He just smashed his head into the wall to make a hole. I don't know, man.
Oh, man, that's so amazing.
That's what the little kids do. He's just like, bonk, bonk. All right, how hard can I do this? What's going to break, my head or the wall? And crack, then the wall breaks.
Welcome to the Mindful Midlife Crisis, a podcast for people navigating the complexities and possibilities of life's second half. Join your hosts, Billy and Brian, a couple of average dudes who will serve as your armchair life coaches as we share our life experiences, both the good and the bad, in an effort to help us all better understand how we can enjoy and make the most of the life we have left to live in a more meaningful way. Take a deep breath, embrace the present, and journey with us through the Mindful Midlife Crisis.
Welcome to the Mindful Midlife Crisis. I'm your host, Billy, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend, Brian, on the bass. Brian, how you doing today?
I am exceptional, thank you.
Fantastic. So, Brian, we don't have a lot of time for idle chit-chat today.
We got to get down to business.
We do got to get down to business because it sounds like one of your kids took the power strip for your computer. You don't know where it is?
So two nights ago, after we, of course, in preparation for our normal Friday get-together, I like to gather all my stuff up. You know, we have various pieces of equipment, microphones and the audio interface and the computer, and you got to get all this stuff together. And I put it in a pile and I put it in bags and strap it all together, and then I set it in a group. Well, I didn't check it before I left the house because when I wake up in the morning, I like to just, take my shower, I put my clothes on, I grab my stuff, and I go. I don't like to have to do a lot of things in the morning. You know what I mean? Like look around for stuff. And I failed to check the pile, and someone, from the time I had packed it up until the time I took it, had decided to remove my power supply from my bag. So, and I know just the one who did it too.
Well, I think that's a perfect intro to today's episode because we're doing a 3-part series on the book, The Male Brain by Luann Brizendine. And today is part 1 of all that, and we're going to talk about the little boy brain, the teenage boy brain, and the daddy brain. And Brian, you are our resident little boy brain expert because you have not 1, not 2, but 3 little boys.
That's correct.
Which would then, of course, make you a dad. So let's start off by asking this. How old were you when you first became a father?
It was 11 years ago, so I was 36.
36. So the first thing that they talk about in this book when you first become a father, you find out that you're going to be a father, is that there is a feeling of distress about becoming a father that appears within the first 4 to 6 weeks. So I'm wondering, do you remember feeling any sense of distress when you realized, holy shit, I just created a human being?
I wouldn't say it was distress. It was more, you worry. You look at the state of the world and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to raise a child in all of this? But yeah, there is those feelings that come and go, I would say. I don't know would you consider that distress, I guess?
Maybe emotional. It's just things are dysregulated, I guess, in some way.
Oh yeah, there's a depth of emotion you feel after you find that out that I personally had never felt previous to that.
So it's interesting that you bring that up because in this book, The Male Brain, they talk about that men have physical, mental, and hormonal shifts once they find out that they're going to be a father. So your testosterone, which is just flooded when you're going through puberty, that actually goes down. And the prolactin, there's going to be a lot of like technical medical terms that are going to be used here, and I'm going to mess them all up. And so I apologize in advance to those of you who are way smarter than I am. Prolactin is it's what activates maternal brain circuits, and so those go up when you find out that you're going to be a father, and you may actually be responding to the pheromones that your partner is giving off during that time. Now, don't worry. That doesn't mean that you're becoming emasculated by it. It just means that your levels will eventually return to normal around 6 weeks.
So that goes right along with what I felt actually at the time, because it was, like I said, it wasn't distress, but it was a very emotional thing. Yeah, you feel more deeply than personally anyway that I've ever felt before. You know, like, yes, I'm going to create another life and have to nurture this child. And, you know, yeah, wow, it's overwhelming. It really is.
So when your first son was born, right, it says here that a baby's face activates the parental instinct area of the brain. Do you remember like what you were thinking, or what were your emotions the first time you saw your firstborn son?
Oh, yeah, I remember that distinctly, like it was yesterday. Absolutely. I was in the room for the birth. So I played catcher. I cut the cord. I was right there. So I saw him being born, and it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life.
Is it all that blood and mucus?
It is, man. It is. But that stuff doesn't bother me. You know what I mean? I don't get grossed out by all that. So it really was amazing. I mean, just the whole process, and I have a new level of respect for my wife after that and what she went through to create this human life. Not only did she live with this thing inside of her for 9 months, but just going through the birth process, holy cow. As somebody who had never experienced, well, I had grown up on a farm, so I had seen births plenty of times, which again, why is probably it didn't bother me as much, because I've seen cows and sheep and horses and every living thing, you know, get born. So, but you know, yeah, when it's a human baby, it's a lot different, man. It's crazy.
I grew up on a farm as well, but I was busy playing sports, and I paid no attention to what the animals were doing. And my sisters will verify that story, and they still actually hold grudges against me because I did absolutely nothing on the farm.
You never had to stick your whole hand in a cow's behind?
No.
Well.
No, not until I was at a bar in Mexico once.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's a different story to tell. Whenever people say no, it's keep in mind that I'm the resident non-dad here. So whenever I think of, you know, someone giving birth to a child, I just envision like Freddy Krueger coming out of a woman's vagina, and I'm like, that doesn't sound beautiful to me. But everyone says that it's so magical. All right, well, whatever, dude.
It really is, man. You get beyond that pretty quick when you realize the gravity of what you're involved in, you know?
I can imagine, because I had a dog and I loved that dog. And, you know, dogs and children are the same.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
So I always love throwing that in there, that like, no, I understand. I have a dog. I like throwing that in there to my parent friends, and they're like, no. And it's like, I know it's not, but you're taking yourself very seriously as a parent. But I understand you have to, because you're raising a little human. You're raising a little human, and you want them to be a productive member of society. You just want them to be a nice person. So are you a hands-on dad? Would you describe yourself as a hands-on dad?
Absolutely, I am.
So so it says here that dads who spend more time holding their children activate their prefrontal cortex for paternal behavior. So I'm guessing that it activates the dad's prefrontal cortex. And if you remember when we talked to Sarah Rudell Beach, the prefrontal cortex, is what regulates our emotion, right? Because we're going to talk a lot about the prefrontal cortex, but we're going to talk a lot about the amygdala, which activates your fight, flight, and fright response. So holding your child actually makes you a little bit more mellow. It makes you a bit more emotionally aware. It says here, the more a man holds and cares for his child, the more he develops his paternal behavior. And so daddy play is more physical and boisterous and therefore more stimulating. And so I'm curious, do you roughhouse with the boys?
Most definitely, but they grow out of it pretty quick. You know what I mean? It's around age 5 or 6, they kind of, that behavior kind of starts to taper off. Like my 11-year-old and my 9-year-old, it's more, especially my 11-year-old, it's definitely more mental stimulation now. He wants to know how things work. What do you know about this computer? What do you know about how this car works? That sort of stuff. My 9-year-old is strictly, I want video games. And then my 4-year-old is the one who will, as soon as I get home, Dad, do you want to play? And that means tickle me.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Do you get a lot of the why questions from the 11 and 9-year-old?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you tell them shut up and eat your fries?
No, I try to give them as much as I know, but I always qualify it like, there's people who know more about this than me, but here you go. Here's what I know about it.
Do your own research.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Helping children find out or figure out how to find answers is another important thing, I believe. So
I would agree. And as an educator, I would agree that we need to be able to teach our children how to seek out answers rather than just downloading whatever we know. Because in the day and age of social media, what we quote unquote know is often distorted. And
most of the time.
Yeah. It's not fact checked. We'll put it that way. All right. People are getting their news from memes and they shouldn't be.
Yeah, precisely.
Are you someone who likes to change the lyrics to songs?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it says here that dads will do that too. That's just part of their play when they're engaged with their sons. It says here that boys love teasing games and will goad the father with playful insults. So do you have that going on in the house?
100%. And of course, I came up with a little game for the boys. I say, all right, whatever you do, just don't nan the boo-boo at me. Don't be like nanny, nanny, boo-boo. Because I knew this and I had to, so they know now, they'll tease a little bit, but when the nanny, nanny, boo-boo comes out, then it's on. Then I'll go after them. You know what I mean? That's their trigger word to get tickled, essentially, the little ones. So,
oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's like is that still like among your dad friends, like, is Nana Nana Boo Boo, is that still?
No, it's just something I was like, give me the simplest, stupidest thing that's not F you or, something like that.
No, that's because I remember that. I mean, that's us growing up right there. You said, Nana Nana Boo Boo.
Yeah.
You smell like doo-doo, something like that. So,
and of course, I do it in a stern but playful way. I'll be like, don't nan the boo-boo with me, man. Just don't do it. And then, of course, that goads them into doing it even more.
Oh, yeah.
And then
yeah.
I take them apart.
Yeah. Give an inch, take a mile, that kind of mentality.
Right.
That's awesome.
They're testing because every second these kids are testing.
Absolutely. And it's interesting how they're going to talk about the teen brain, how it's almost programmed to do that.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm in the middle of the book, The Female Brain, and just kidding, I'm not in the middle. I'm like in the first chapter. Here's a funny story. This is no lie. If you take a look at the Female Brain book and the Male Brain book, they're both around 250 pages.
That surprises me.
Oh, just wait. The Male Brain text is like 75 font. And the Female Brain font is like 3. So I'm having a hard time laboring through the Female Brain book because I'm an incredibly slow reader. For an English teacher, I'm an incredibly slow reader because I like to read each and every single word and theatrically perform it in my head.
Understand it. Yeah, because you're
like
a visual learner.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And so I'm struggling to get through it. And it's not because it's not interesting. It is. It's very interesting. It's just, it's a little bit harder read for a guy who, there's so many words on the page and it distracts me.
Billy, I'm just going to get this out there right now. This is where I stand on the whole men versus women thing. Guys, suck it up. Women are smarter than us. I'm just going to get it out there. Know what you're getting into. If you think you're smarter than women, you are not. So just getting that out there. Women are much smarter and much more complex than men are.
It says here that mothers are emotionally intuitive. And, to your point, and this is not us kissing any woman's ass, maybe me because I'm not married or, I'm single, that kind of thing. But Brian doesn't have to schmooze anybody. He's got a lovely wife and they love each other very much. So it says here that mothers are emotionally intuitive. And in my opinion, when people who are emotionally intuitive, and that's the reason why we have this show, is because we're trying to help particularly dudes our age, become more emotionally aware, become more emotionally intuitive. It says here that on the contrary, dads are more direct, which connects to real world conversation. And it sounds like when you have those why conversations with your boys, that's what you're doing, is you're making those connections to the real world.
Most definitely, yeah.
So I'm curious about your parenting styles, and if you can compare and contrast yours and Lean's when it comes to discipline and consequences.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're pretty much on the same page with that. We both realize there's a need to discipline, and you have to stick to any discipline you do, that sort of stuff. You have to follow through with it. You have to follow up, talk to them about it and help them understand it. But no, we're both very similar.
Do they do the old mom said no, so I'll ask dad, or dad said no and they'll ask mom?
I think that's universal, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. They'll go to the person that they think they have the best chance of success. Yeah.
So has there ever been a situation where mom shot him down, but dad gave the okay, or vice versa?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but ultimately what Ma says goes. I'm just going to tell you that right now. The buck stops at Ma. You know what I mean? And that's fine with me, because she has skills that I don't have when it comes to parenting. I mean, really, I appreciate her so very much because she knows so much more about this than I do.
And she spends more time with them because she's at home with them, correct? And so I imagine she knows when they are either A, trying to be manipulative and ask you, or B, she knows when it's like, no, you've had enough of that, or no, you haven't earned that. And so it's a no.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
It says here, active disciplinarians have students who have better grades and fewer behavioral problems, and daughters who have fewer emotional problems. Now, I'm not exactly sure what that term active disciplinarian means.
I was just going to say, I think that may mean more like being a disciplinarian can cross over into the same as having structure for the children.
Got it.
You know what I mean? Like my wife is very much, especially school activities, all that sort of stuff. She's very regimented about it. You start here, you're preparing for school, you get your stuff together, you do this, she's got a schedule for them, especially during this distance learning portion. She had a very rigid schedule that they stick to. So not necessarily discipline, but it is, if you're using discipline in the traditional sense of that you're sticking to a plan.
I like that. I like that clarification. So I've mentioned I work as a dean, so I have a hard time saying that we're disciplining students. I use the word consequences because you can choose your behaviors and you can't choose your consequences. So I just tell them, listen, you behaved in this way, and so this is the consequence that goes along with it. I don't know. That's just, maybe that's me flowering up that language, but to me, I think that's a way that we need to see the result, the consequences of our actions, that sort of thing. So
in relating the two, I believe that disciplined structure leads to better behavior regularly, rather than active disciplinarians implies consequence, as you were saying. I think discipline can also be structure and sticking to a schedule or a structure, which really helps kids. That's one thing I've learned from my wife. You get less behavioral problems if there's a more rigid structure adhered to.
Were your parents disciplinarians? Like, did you get the spanking and that sort of thing?
Yeah, but it only had to happen once. And then I was like, oh, I don't want that again. So,
Yeah, I don't remember getting a lot of spankings when I was a kid. I remember I got them. I definitely got them, but I usually got them from my mom. They usually came from my mom, I think anyway. I don't remember. I know I got spanked from my dad. Here's a story from my dad. I guess I was being, this is one of my dad's favorite stories to tell. I guess I was being unruly in church one time.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I guess I was 5 or something like that, because I don't remember this at all, but my dad loves to tell this story. So apparently I was being unruly in church, so my dad took me out to the car, and it must have been like a 90-degree day or something like that. And he rolled the windows up and would not let me roll the windows down. And we just sat in that sweltering car while church continued on, and we waited for my mom and my sisters to come out. And one of the nuns, so I went to a K-6 Catholic school, and my dad, like I've said, my dad is Rodney Dangerfield. He knows everybody in town. So the nuns, one of the nuns, Sister Suzanne, comes up to my dad and says, oh, what are you guys doing in here? And then she peers in and she sees me, and I'm just drenched in sweat. And she goes, uh-oh, was someone naughty? And apparently I just started bawling my eyes out because someone found out that I had been a bad child. So, but I don't remember. I know I got spanked, but I didn't get a lot of them. So I was just kind of curious, or how that works out in the way that you parent your children. So it says here, crying babies hit parents in the same part of the brain. It just hits them much faster in women. And so it hits their amygdala and the NCC. That's what lights up in both parents, but women respond to it faster. I remember you were talking in one of the first episodes, you had mentioned that, like, if the kids are crying or something like that, you don't immediately rush to it.
Yep.
And so I'm curious, when you hear it, do you tune it out a little bit, or is it kind of like, ugh, here we go? Is it something serious? And does Lean, when she hears it, she's like, or are you both kind of like trained now?
Now, yes, we're both about the same. We both, just because we know our children, we're in tune with what's normal and what's not. But I would say at first, yeah, I mean, as far as the baby crying goes, yeah, when they're newborns, I mean, wow, that's another thing that just amazed me, is how intensely they must be cared for that first couple of months. I mean, they're getting fed every 3 hours, dude. So she's up, that baby's crying. She's there finding out what it needs. I don't think I have the facilities to be able to do what she did with all 3 of our children. I mean, it's just amazing to me.
That's why when I got a dog, I got a 5.5-year-old dog instead of a puppy, because again, like babies, puppies are the same. So, in the care of them is all the same. I actually hope we get hate mail for that. I actually hope, bring it on. I hope we get hate mail because of that. Okay. It says here, within weeks, babies know which parent is the mom and which is the dad. That's really interesting to me. Within weeks,
wow,
they already know who mom is and who dad is. And it says that the biological bond between baby and mom is stronger due to breastfeeding. So maybe Freud is right after all.
Perhaps.
Who knows? Maybe there is an Oedipal complex that goes along with it. So with that in mind, how do you think you'd parent differently if you had 3 daughters?
Well, I'd get my hair and nails done more often, I think. But no.
A lot more tea parties?
In all seriousness, though, of course it would be different, because boys are different than girls. I've heard boys are really tough when they're young, which is true, because my boys are destroying the domicile we live in. And it's crazy. It's insane. And little girls don't behave that way. You know what I mean? They're more in tune with feelings and people, I think, than little boys are,
Do you remember that Louis C.K. bit about the difference between boys and girls? Because Louis C.K. has girls. So he talks about boys fuck things up, mm-hmm, and girls are fucked up, because a boy will shatter your entire house and will rip your arm out of the socket.
They do all that stuff.
But they will leave the rest of you intact. And girls will just shit down your soul. And he uses the example of how how the younger daughter, the oldest daughter, her toy broke or something like that, and so she made her dad break the younger daughter's toy, and and he did. That's his joke, is that he did, but he just talks about the emotional psychology and the difference amongst it. Like boys break shit, but girls will just manipulate and ruin your lives. I thought that was really, really funny. Now we're coming off. Not only have I said that puppies and babies are the same, but now I sound like a raging misogynist.
It's all right. That hate mail's on the way now.
It's on the way. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so whether they be boys or girls, though, I really think this really sums up how strong the bond between parents and children are. Okay? I want you to picture this. Anybody else besides a child that you're raising comes into your house, eats all your food, shits on your floor. You kill that motherfucker. You know what I mean? But you don't with children. It's like, oh, they pooped on the floor. That's so ha ha. Let's take a picture.
And post it on social media and blackmail them forever.
Right. So that right there tells you how strong the bond between a parent and a child is. Because they just get away with stuff nobody else could.
That's beautiful. It says here that fathers feel closer to daughters when they feel they can do something for them. And I imagine fathers feel closer to their sons when they can do something with them. It says, it kind of goes along with this, dads feel compelled to show their sons what it means to be men. So I guess, what are you teaching your boys about what it means to be a man? Or is that even a conversation that pops up in your house?
It's a little early, but, and I guess, the tradition, I don't like the traditional, here's a manly man, kind of stuff either. I more take their lead. What they show interest in, I try to nurture. And if they have questions, I explain to them and what I think. I don't necessarily, say, okay, kids, we're going to go kill something today because that's what men do, or let's go get the food and, that sort of stuff. I more follow their lead as to, what they're interested in and try to nurture their interests and, explain any questions they have.
I love that. You get to know your kids and let them carve their own path rather than you shaping it for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that would be overbearing. There's a lot of people I see that live through their children. You know what I mean? Like, you see all these, especially on social media. And when I say this, everybody who's listening is going to go, oh yeah. You see those parents that are into something, say beauty contests or whatever. And all of a sudden, their daughter's got to be in the beauty contest and she's got to be the biggest beauty queen in the world. And there's a lot of projection that happens. And I don't want to do that, man. I don't want, or even football sports is another thing. I see that happen all the time. People were involved in sports and they didn't accomplish what they wanted to in their life. And they think, okay, I'm going to do it now, but with my kid.
I've got a great story for that. So my dad wrestled in high school. And when I was in first grade, I wrestled, and I was pretty good for a first grader. So I ended up going to state, and I was sick. Now, in hindsight, I think maybe it was just nerves, right? And I didn't want to go, and I didn't like wrestling. I didn't like it, but I was good at it. And my dad wrestled and he was coaching and he was, it was important to him that I do it. And whenever he tells this story, he can never get through it without crying. And my dad is he's a manly man, you know what I mean? But he's a very sensitive guy. Anytime that you do something nice on TV or anything like that, my dad will tear up. So he's not afraid to show his emotions. So when he tells a story, he talks about how I said to him, Dad, do I have to wrestle just because you wrestled? And he said from that point, I never made you wrestle again.
See, that was good. He realized that projection was going on, right? And I think a lot of people do that. And I'm very conscious of that. So I don't imprint my personality onto my offspring. I let them take the lead, and then I nurture their interests.
I think that's an amazing parenting approach. So let's take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about the male brain. Thank you for listening to the Mindful Midlife Crisis.
Thank you for listening to the Mindful Midlife Crisis. If you're enjoying what you've heard so far, please do us a favor and hit the subscribe button. Also, giving our show a quick 5-star review with a few kind words helps us on our quest to reach the top of the podcast charts. Finally, since you can't make a mixtape for your friends and loved ones like you used to do, share this podcast with them instead. We hope our experiences resonate with others and inspire people to live their best lives. Thanks again. And now, let's take a minute to be present with our breath. If you're listening somewhere safe and quiet, close your eyes and slowly inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly exhale for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's do that one more time. Inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slowly exhale for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and open your eyes. You feel better? We certainly hope so. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the Mindful Midlife Crisis. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how the male brain develops, especially at like the younger age. At 8 weeks old, 8 weeks, actually at 8 weeks in pregnancy, the testes are already producing testosterone. And the male brain produces testosterone, vasopressin, and something called the Mullerian inhibiting substance. And if you are a brain expert and you want to come on and talk about the Mullerian inhibiting substance, please do. If you're Luann Brizendine, come on and talk about the Mullerian inhibiting substance.
That sounds like something that would come out of Star Trek.
Or it actually kind of sounds like a sweet band name.
The Mullerian inhibiting substance.
I bet, like, I'd maybe listen to that band.
Yeah, it would be like techno, but like a dark techno.
Yeah, I like that. That sounds like a project. That sounds like our next project.
All right.
It says here the boy brain is programmed to move, make things move, and watch things move. And Brian, you're shaking your head vigorously. It says here this force is more compelling than the warnings of danger from parents.
Oh, yes. I mean, it's do. I'm moving this here. I'm taking this. I'm holding this. Boys, I totally see that.
And in the book, they talk about how the compulsion to make something move is so much more powerful. Like they tune out their parents because that warning is nothing compared to, or the threat of you're going to get in trouble is nothing compared to the joy and stimulation that they get from making something move or watching something move, because boys like to push their physical limits. Boys express themselves much more physically. It says here up to 6 times more than girls. What's interesting is that boys solve conceptual math problems faster through their compulsion for movement. So they actually use movement to solve math problems, whereas girls are more inclined to use their words to explain how they solved the math problems. Boys will use movements and gestures. So how did you solve for X, little boy? And they will explain it through movements and gestures, and girls will use words. Do you have a lot of farting and belching in your house?
We've cornered the market on it. At any given time, Billy, you can just sit stationary for a few moments and hear farting and belching. Just like, okay, I'm going to sit for a minute. There it was.
Do you have how many sharts have there been because they like to push their limit?
Oh, yeah. Of course. It happens. It happens.
Yeah, it says here that the excitement is worth the risk. So if you're gonna lean over and press one out or push one out, and a little doo-doo comes out, it's totally worth the risk. It says here that the fight, flight, and fright instinct is what leads boys to turn everything into a weapon during playtime, even if the boy is stereotypically for girls. So that's why if you are in a house and it's a boy and a girl, that's maybe why if the girl has, like, I'm thinking when I was younger, we would play with Barbies, but you would use Barbies as like a weapon of some sort, right? You turn Barbie into a weapon. Do you find that? Do you have a lot of weapons in your house?
Oh, yeah. They're always taking, Nerf guns, swords out of cardboard, anything that can be a weapon. They love it.
How much drywall have you replaced in your home?
Oh, well, my middle kid put his head through the drywall one time.
That's the story I was thinking about.
Yeah. I was walking through the hallway and I see a softball-sized divot in the, and I'm like, what the hell? And I'm like, Charlie, come here. And sure enough, I put him right next to the divot, and it's right where his head hit the wall.
So what did he do?
He just smashed his head into the wall to make a hole. I don't know, man.
Oh, man, that's so amazing.
That's what the little kids do. He's just like, bonk, bonk. All right, how hard can I do this? What's going to break, my head or the wall? And crack, then the wall breaks. And he's like, whoops.
Oh, man, that's amazing. That's it. You are living Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Fortunately, I hold the conch most of the time. So...
It talks about how boys are far more primitive, and like you are just living it. You are living it. We actually used to do a writing assignment where change Lord of the Flies to if it was all girls, and I actually think that would be a very interesting twist to that book.
I bet it'd be a lot more pleasant, tell you the truth.
Well, I'm curious, and as I'm kind of reading through the Female Brain book, it talks about how that girls will use their words. And so does that mean that they will use their words in a way to get their way? Where boys will use force, girls will use their words to get their way. So is there a level of manipulation that girls master because they are more emotionally in tune, not only to themselves, but into others, and they're able to use their words? That's kind of what I'm picking up so far in that book as I'm reading through it. So it says here that turning things into a weapon is a simple pleasure, but it's almost as compelling of a simple pleasure as touching their little penis. Do you see the boys rubbing up against stuff?
Oh my gosh, there's times where we're like, be careful, you're going to pull it off. I mean, they just go to town, man. It's just relax with all that, especially when they're little, man. It happens all right.
Oh my God. This has been my favorite episode so far. This is so great.
Well, this book is very accurate. I'm telling you this right now, because all of this stuff, I'm like, yep, check.
Oh man. It also says that boy brains are fussier and take longer to calm down than girl brains.
Most definitely.
Yeah. I think it's part of that movement, right? Yeah. It's that movement. So they first have to settle down the movement, and then once they settle down the movement, then they have to settle down their brain.
We have to transition. We call it transitioning. So, there's physical play, and then there's play where you're a little more stationary. We have to do transitions between the two, because you can't just be like, okay, sit down and do nothing. After you've been wrestling, it just doesn't work. You have to segue somehow and capture their attention with something else. It happens every day, man. Before bed, especially. Yeah, it's, you're having fun, you're having physical play, you're wrestling, you're doing all that stuff. And then it's like, okay, let's start calming down. But you still play a little bit more. Okay, now we're going to calm down a little bit more. It's getting close to quiet time. So you have to set those boundaries, as you calm down. Like, no, it's okay to play like that, but you can't play like that all the time. Let's transition now. And we do that with the children. We tell them that.
I love that.
So
I love that. Man, you're a good dad.
Hey, I try to be, man. I try to be.
And Lean, you're a good mom.
Lean, no, this is where I get it all from. I give all the credit to her, man. I don't know any of this stuff.
Well, you guys are doing things. You guys are doing things well. I would be proud to have your boys in my classroom, as long as they're not putting their head through any of the walls or headbutting anybody in the classroom. I thought that would be bad. It says here, by age 4, boys already reject girl toys and colors, so they know what a girl toy is or what a girl color is, and they actually feel the insult of being called a girl or to play with things that girls play with. So I'm curious, did you see this with your boys? Are you currently seeing this with your 4-year-old?
Not really, no. They'll play with things. Well, of course, we don't have a lot of girl toys, but I guess maybe because their cousins are girls. So when we go over there, they tend to stick to the more like blocks rather than princess castles. So yeah, there's a little truth to that.
Do they let the girls lead game time or play time?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just kind of curious. Are her cousins? Are their cousins older or the same age?
About the same age.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And they play well, just fine when they're.
They do very well. Yeah.
Okay. Do they play separately?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Again, all things that I don't know as I learn more about how little kids develop and play, that sort of thing. It's been I don't remember what it was like really to be a kid outside of just playing sports. I didn't play Legos, but there was like a block set that I used to play with. But I just made the same house over and over and over again with that block set. I think
that's what everybody does, though.
Never expanded beyond that. So alpha males, and I'm going to tell you that I'm a beta male. And we're going to talk about that at some time. Because Brian, I think of you as like an alpha male. You're like a traditional male dude, because you like to shoot guns, and you're very handy because you're working on the bus. Those are like, I shot guns when I was younger, but I have no interest in them now. I could barely, like, when you open the hood of a car, I'm like, yep. I don't know what any of it does. I just know when it works, it gets me from point A to point B much faster than if I was walking. So alpha males, they already begin to develop their traits at a very young age. And alpha males are not always the biggest boys in the group, but they're the ones who will not back down from conflict. And so you already see that developing in kids when they're 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. So you can tell who the alpha males are as they develop, and it's because they have more testosterone. So when they got hit with that, or when as they're aging, that testosterone is building up, and by age 15, they are ranked high amongst the hierarchy of their peers, which I find very interesting because this is the age group with which I work. And so we're going to take another break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about those teenage years. Thank you for listening to the Mindful Midlife Crisis.
Thanks for listening to the Mindful Midlife Crisis. We will do our best to put out new content every Wednesday to help get you over the midweek hump. If you'd like to contact us, or if you have suggestions about what you'd like us to discuss, feel free to email us at mindfulmidlifecrisis@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at mindful_midlife_crisis. Check out the show notes for links to the articles and resources we reference throughout the show. Oh, and don't forget to show yourself some love every now and then, too. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the Mindful Midlife Crisis. We've been talking about the male brain, and now we're going to talk about the teenage male brain. What was puberty like for you, Brian?
Oh, let's see. It was, I don't really remember, to tell you the truth.
Puberty was not great for me because I had cystic acne. So
Oh,
I had like, as gross as this sounds, I had like scabs a half-inch thick all over my chest and back.
Oh, yeah.
So like when I have scars, I'm scarred all over my chest and back and it was gross. It used to ooze off of me. And so I had to, I actually had to sleep with a shirt on, because if I didn't, then I would stick to the mattress.
Oh man, that's terrible.
Yeah, it was terrible. Like it was, just like a mix of ooze and blood, and like I would have to peel my shirt off, which means that would pull the scabs off. Like
dude, that's a bummer, man.
That's what puberty was like for me. It was no fun. I was just a scrawny kid when I was, maybe 120 pounds dripping wet. My senior year, my basketball playing weight was 128 pounds, and my baseball playing weight, I bulked up to 132.
Big time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I was a powerhouse. It says here that when we hit puberty, that there is a testosterone tsunami, which clearly must not have hit me, and your testosterone actually soars 20-fold, and that's what masculinizes the teen brain and the teen body. And so the amygdala develops first, and again, that's that fight, flight, or fright response. And your prefrontal cortex doesn't mature until the early 20s. So think about it. Your amygdala is your animal brain. So if you're wondering, why are teenage boys such savages? Well, blame it on biology. Their prefrontal cortex, their ability to regulate emotion, it's not going to develop until mid-20s.
Yeah, if you're relating that to Freud, that's your superego. Yeah.
That's where your psychology background comes into play. Nice work. Way to put that into...
Id is the animal brain, the amygdala.
Oh, got it.
Ego, and then superego, right.
Excellent. I'm glad that you threw that in there right there, because I don't understand those three, and I don't pay attention long enough to care about it. So thank you for explaining it.
It's all right. It's kind of an outdated concept nowadays anyway. So, but nonetheless, it was very, that's what they were teaching when I got the degree, which is like a million years ago. So.
Right. And again, we'll take any psychologist on this program to set us straight, because a lot of times we will talk out of our ass. Teen boy prefrontal cortex, it's no match for the amygdala. It's no match, because the amount of testosterone and vasopressin that floods the brain, it's just no match for it. And when you add a cortisol, which is what we feel when we feel stressed, that fight, flight, or fright response is enhanced. So the teen boy brain, they have a desire to become more independent, which is actually a primal response. So we see other animals actually behave in this way when they hit puberty as well. So it's not just teen boy brains, it's actually other animal brains as well. So fitting in is everything to a teen boy. Fitting in, it's everything. And when testosterone and vasopressin are combined, it makes boys territorial. I see this quite a bit in school, where you want to fit in. So here's an example. 2 boys got into a slap box fight the other day because they were arguing over who the better basketball player is. One of them plays basketball, one of them doesn't. So when I was talking to the kid who does play basketball, I just said, why didn't you point that out to him? Rather than going to the bathroom and slap boxing, why didn't you just point out that you play basketball, you went out for the team, you made the team, ergo, you are better at basketball than the other kid? That would have been the simple solution, and just walked away from that. But no, that feeling of fitting in, of territoriality, where it's just you know, this is your turf, and you cannot. They're sensitive to perceived threats, so therefore his ability to play a basketball player challenged his manhood. It was a threat. Let's go to the bathroom and we're going to slap box.
And once again, solved it physically rather than with words. It would have been so much easier to just say, hey, exactly what you said.
and they didn't solve it. I asked the kid, So do you know who the better basketball player is because you went to the bathroom and slapboxed? No, you don't, do you? So was that worth the consequence that you're getting? No, it wasn't.
Very good.
Yeah.
That was a good way of handling it.
Well, and it wasn't my first rodeo. Put it that way, because most of the kids that I have in my office are teenage boys for all of these reasons right here. Just because a lot of times, when I talk to parents, and parents talk about how do I deal with this and da 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 da. It's like, listen, this is the stage that they're going through, and we can coach them about how to navigate these situations. It's okay to make new mistakes. Well, we want to teach them that we have to learn from those mistakes so that we don't keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best pieces of advice that I was at a conference, and the presenter said this. He said, freshmen are always going to behave like freshmen. That individual student is going to grow and be a sophomore, a junior, and then a senior. But if you're an administrator, if you're a dean, why would you ever expect freshmen to grow up? Why would you ever expect freshmen to mature and behave differently than what their biological process has them being?
It's very true.
And so that really stopped and made me think, okay, yeah, like I'm getting frustrated a lot with these behaviors from these freshmen and sophomore boys. And the thing is, they're freshmen and sophomore boys. Of course they're going to behave this way. And so I'm going to get frustrated with it, but I have to take a step back and recognize that this is part of their maturation process, and I can be part of that maturation process and say, let's talk about when we're in a situation like this again, how can we approach it differently? Now, that fight, flight, or fright response, that's going to overtake any words that I have to say. I mean, if a parent's words cannot keep their primal, their savage brain from acting out, then some random strange dude who they see only when they get in trouble may not resonate with them as well. What you just hope is that over time, what you have to say begins to sink in a little bit more and more and more. It's difficult when they are surrounded by their peers. When teen boys are in a group, their brains experience excitement and emotional euphoria that makes them more willing to do risky things. In their pleasure center in the teen brain, it's nearly numb. So they have to do things that are completely outlandish in order to feel anything, which is significantly different from girls, because girls thrive on emotional connection. They thrive on relationships. It's why teenage girls talk about relationships and teen boys talk about games and objects. And so I always tell teenage boys when they get sent to my office, listen, one-on-one, you're a really nice kid. But when you're around your group of friends, your IQ drops by about 50 points. So I need you not to get sucked in to that vortex of risk, which is really, really difficult for teenage boys to avoid. It's biologically almost impossible for them to do that.
And socially, when you have other teens hanging around them and feeling the same thing, it's almost like an echo chamber, you know?
And the teen brain is programmed to tune out unwanted sounds. It just sounds like white noise to them. So
that I see. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that is a frustrating thing for me. What if I'm 10 feet away and I'm trying to get your attention? And I know you can hear me. I know you can hear me because I'm 10 feet and I've got a voice that projects. And then you look up, what? That drives me nuts. That drives me nuts.
I bet it does.
So I'm trying, again, that's why I'm glad that I read these books so that I can understand a little bit more about why teenagers behave the way that they do. Another thing that I found interesting is that because of vasopressin, that is why teen boys think neutral faces are actually angry or aggressive. I walk around pretty much with a neutral face all day. I'm always on alert. I'm always
Which
looking
makes
around.
sense. You should be.
Yeah, I'm scanning around, and I'm in a building with 3,700 students, 9 through 12. There's a lot of students. There's a lot of chaos. It's my job to make sure that everybody stays safe. It's my job to make sure that everybody is following the rules, that sort of thing. And so when I walk by people and I'm just kind of stone-faced or I'm stoic, they take that as an act of aggression. It would behoove me to smile more when I am at work. But man, teenage boys are just stupid sometimes.
Yeah, they are. We are.
Oh,
I'd just say you could take out teenage out of that sentence too.
That's very true. That's very true. The last thing that we wanted to talk about is the teenage boy pursuit for sex. So when teenage boys start developing their brains, they become hungry for sex. Now, here is a stat from this book that I thought was it cracked me up, but just it's probably very true. Sexual pursuit is pushed to the forefront of the teenage boy mind. I don't think that comes as a surprise to anybody. This is the part that made me chuckle. Studies show that from puberty to the mid-20s, men need to ejaculate 1 to 3 times a day.
Wait, that's supposed to end in the mid-20s? Whoops.
Oh, so Brian, all I have to say is good luck keeping any boxes of Kleenex in your home.
Oh, no. I'm in for it. I know. It's going to happen.
If you find that you are washing socks way more often than what you used to do, you know that puberty has hit your boys.
There's going to be some guidance around this whole thing. I'm going to be like, that's not going to fly here, fellas. Here's the deal. Here's what you do. Just like if they make a mess now, they clean it up. And I show them. I'm like, okay, guys, here you go.
You're going to teach them how to do their own laundry.
You're going to be doing your own. They do it now, man. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, that's then they can cover their traces.
Exactly. We're preparing everything for this right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is actually a good spot for us to end this episode because next week we are going to talk about that brain below the belt. Yes, we're going to talk about the male sex drive in our next episode of the Mindful Midlife Crisis. For Brian, this is Billy. We made it through this episode without his computer dying, so we're very excited about that. Thank you for listening. May you feel happy, healthy, and loved. Take care, friends. So let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about little boys. Thank you for listening to the Mindful Midlife Crisis. That sounded terrible.
That wasn't good. Wasn't good. Just redo that. Just redo that. We'll save that one for the outtakes.
Oh, God. Okay. Oh, all right. Are we still recording?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Here we go. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the Mindful Midlife Crisis podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If this episode resonates with you, please share it with your family and friends. We will do our best to put out new content every Wednesday to get you over the midweek hump. If you want episodes to be downloaded automatically to your phone each week, all you need to do is hit the checkmark, subscribe, like, or follow button, depending on what podcast format you're using. While you're at it, feel free to leave our show a quick 5-star review with a few kind words so more people like you can easily find our show. If you're really enjoying the show and you want to help us out, feel free to make a donation to www.buymeacoffee.com/MMC podcast. That's www.buymeacoffee.com/MMC podcast. You can also access the link in our show notes. We use the money from these donations to pay whatever expenses we incur from producing the show, but ultimately, we record this show for you. So if you keep listening, we'll keep recording and releasing new episodes each week regardless. If you'd like to contact us, or if you have suggestions about what you'd like us to discuss on future episodes, feel free to email us at mindfulmidlifecrisis@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at mindful_midlife_crisis. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to the articles and resources we reference throughout the show. Thanks again for listening. May you feel happy, healthy, and loved.